It's Saturday morning, I'm Steve, and this is your Saturday morning TV revival for the generation who managed to be so violent with yo-yos and pogs that cardboard and plastic ended up being prohibited on school playgrounds. This week we've got Hobby Hangout, where we look back at what we achieved last week and set our goals for the next one. Over at the book club, we're reviewing our next read. We've got the most unnecessary game show around with Lick That Pokemon. Bit by bit dives into the player's handbook as we break down another Dungeons and Dragons rule. Hit and Miss brings the best of my weekly comics, while the spotlight shines on a retro game. And of course, what's in the box? Well, you'll have to watch to find that out. So without further ado, let's make your Saturday mornings the best time of the week once again. We're starting with Hobby Hangout, so let's head over to the hobby bench. Welcome to Hobby Hangout, the part of the show where we celebrate our wins from last week and set some new goals for the next. So what did you achieve? Maybe you managed 5 portions of fruit and veg every day. Maybe you finally bought those 2 guinea pigs you've always wanted. Or maybe you scoured every charity shop in a 20-mile radius to see what treasures you could find. Let me know in the comments what you achieved last week and we can celebrate together. For me, I finally tackled something that had been daunting me for ages. I started painting one of my Warhammer centrepiece models. If you don't know, most armies have a generic troop and then a handful of special characters, and I wanted to make sure I painted this one to the best of my ability. So far, I've only finished the green armor, but even that took about 4 hours. I glazed the shadows and the highlights, which was a brand new technique for me. It was surprisingly relaxing and therapeutic, and I actually really enjoyed the process. I wanted this model to be something special, but because it's a character, it's covered in extra details like emblems and dragon scale cloaks. So that was something that made me feel a little overwhelmed. I didn't think I had the technical skills to pull it off. One step at a time though. The armor is done. The rest is blacked out and ready to go. I love how this looks already. And I'm amazed that with a little focus and practice, I was able to achieve it. So that's definitely a hobby win for me this week. Drop your successes in the comments so we can celebrate together. And remember, if you did not hit your hobby goals, that is fine too. Life gets busy. Hobbies are here to be fun and relaxing, not stressful, but they are important to your well-being. So make sure you build downtime into your week. But enough about last week. Let's look into the future and set some goals. A quick pause here to remind you to drop your hobby achievements and goals in the comments. Next week, I will pick some of the best ones and you can join the Saturday morning winners circle. No matter how big or small, you still achieve something, and that is more than anybody could say that never tried. Right, back to Hobby Hangout. So what is your hobby goal for next week? Maybe you're training to be the next cheese rolling champion. Maybe you want to finish a crossword every day. Or maybe you have a list of pubs you have never visited and want to tick them all off. Whatever your goal is, it's worth sharing. Drop yours in the comments and lock in your commitment. For me, the obvious goal would be to finish this Warhammer character, but I'm not gonna. The model has a lot of details and each of those need their own painting techniques, and working out how to approach it is a mini hobby in itself. Instead, my main hobby goal is going to be painting up the 2 drop pods I built a couple of weeks ago. I have a recipe that's quick for dirty, rusty silver, and since the models are mostly silver, I don't think it will take too long. If I have spare time, I'm going to research painting recipes for other parts of this character. With Warhammer, I've learned the secret is knowing when to compromise and when not to. Not every model needs to be painted to the highest standard, but certain ones deserve every ounce of effort, and that is what makes them special. So let us set our hobby goals for next week. Drop yours in the comments and let us work together to achieve them. That's it for Hobby Hangout this week. Now it's time to swap out plastic for paper and head over to the book club. Welcome to Book Club, where we get together and talk about the books that we've been reading this week. Let me know in the comments what you've read and maybe we can start a discussion about those. For me, I finished the next part of the Baratie arc. Reading manga is still new to me, and I've quickly learned I prefer tackling it in arcs instead of volumes. Right now, I'm on the Baratie arc, which is where we meet Sanji, and I've split this into 3 parts. So this section is the middle one leading into the finale. This is hands down the best arc so far. There's been a bigger variety of antagonists, more wild and wacky powers, some strong flashbacks with emotional moments, and a very different landscape than Syrup Village. Still, there are similarities in structure. If Syrup Village was Evil Dead, then Baratie is Evil Dead 2. It feels like Oda took everything he learned from Syrup Village and made it bigger, better, and funnier. Weirdly, I keep comparing One Piece to The Walking Dead in my head. I think they're more similar than they seem. Both worlds allow people to rise as leaders, ruling however they want, backed by their crew. Not every pirate is ruthless or noble. They sit on a moral scale, just like the survivors in The Walking Dead. Some are closer to Luffy with a strong moral compass, others are on the opposite side, and it reminds me of the Rick to Negan spectrum. The action sequences are getting more intense and erratic. They're exciting to read, but sometimes harder to follow. I often get to the end of a fight before I realise what's actually happened, and then I go back and reread it. I suspect some of these will work better in the anime, where you can see movement and positioning more clearly. Oda also pushes the characters right to their limits, which makes the fights fun. They're never one-sided. It always looks like the antagonist could win and the crew might lose, but we know the Straw Hats will pull it back. It's not a question of if, it's how and when. Oda also warps anatomy to reflect power and perception. A captain can literally grow taller to show authority. It sounds surreal, but in context, it feels natural. And I've never read a comic that distorts bodies this much, yet still feels right. This arc also introduces Sanji. He's not my favourite, but I do prefer him over Usopp at this stage. Usopp feels immature compared to the rest, though that may be because he's from a small town and hasn't had much real world experience. Though Sanji's constant crap this and crap that is a strange phrase though. If anyone knows what the original translation was, let me know in the comments, because it feels like something that might have shifted in localization. I'm also not sure how much attention I should be giving to the Buggy cover stories throughout. They look like they might form a proper side plot, and it'll be great if Buggy re-enters the story later. The world of One Piece also gives me James Pond 2 Robocod vibes, with all the swirls and hearts and cartoon exaggeration, and James Pond could stretch just like Luffy. And here's a question that's been bugging me. If Luffy can't swim and sinks like a stone, what happens if he inflates to a Gum Gum balloon? Can he float like a giant armband? See, that's the important stuff that I think about. Oda clearly planned One Piece with unusual foresight. The characterization, quirks, and world building feel intentional from the start, but the world is whimsical enough that he can add or retcon details without breaking immersion. It's a clever balance of long-term planning and flexibility. Overall, this arc has been my favourite so far. We all know Sanji is going to join the crew, but I'm excited to see how we actually get there. So let me know what you're reading or about to read. Hell, if I own it, I'll read it with you for a future book club. But from pretty paper to pretty bits of cardboard, it's time for the most lick-smacking game show around. It's time to play Lick That Pokemon, the game show that asks questions nobody should be asking, like what is the juice on the outside of a Dipplin and is it edible? This is the Pokemon card pack battle and the rules are simple. We open 2 packets of Pokemon cards and crown 1 packet the winner. The winner isn't picked for the most valuable card. It isn't picked for the coolest artwork. It's picked based on which Pokemon I most want to slather my tongue all over. This week, we've got Stellar Crown versus Twilight Masquerade. Honestly, I don't think it needs any more explanation. The rules speak for themselves, so let's get into it. Starting with Stellar Crown. Now, there are quite a few lickable Pokemon in Stellar Crown. We've got a Gulpin, we've got a Milcery, I can't think what else is in here off the top of my head. But I think Stellar Crown is actually one of the most lickable packs going. We've got some metal stuff going on there. I think I saw a Clink and a Melmetal. Not the tastiest, but pretty sterile. I'm just going to interrupt again with a quick bit of trading card advice. It took me a long time to figure out what to keep in top loaders, those rigid plastic sleeves that give your cards extra protection. And the honest answer is whatever you want. Your favourite cards or the ones you plan to sell. I used to put every EX in a top loader and ended up with a huge stack that didn't fit in any storage boxes. For many of them, the cost of the top loader was worth more than the card. What you put in top loaders is entirely up to you. And you don't even have to use them if you don't want. Grab some on Amazon, start experimenting and figure out what feels right. You can always change your mind. This is your hobby. Do it your way. Right, back to Twilight Masquerade. I'm practically drooling here. Right, Twilight Masquerade, onto you. Twilight Masquerade isn't that bad either. There's an Applin, which compared with a Dipplin in this set is probably the 2 that we're really looking for. There is the Tatsugiri illustration rare, which I always think is a really nice card and I don't actually own. And today I still don't own it. Right, should we see what we think could win? Right, Twilight Masquerade, you really didn't do that well. Reveroom, definitely not licking you. Volbeat, you're going to shock me. Probopass, Sinistar, I mean, maybe. Out of 2 packs of cards that could have been very good. Right. We didn't get the best, but here's what I'm gonna crown the winner. Stellar Crown is gonna win, and I'll tell you why. We've got a Clink. We've got a Melmetal. I mean, as long as Melmetal isn't like licking Mercury, I think we could be onto something okay there. Within it as well, we also had a Toadschool, and maybe, just maybe, that will give us some weird and wacky effects going on. So who knows? Controversial. But Stellar Crown, you are my winner for that trio of cards. Let me know in the comments if you would have licked a different Pokemon. And let me know if you would like to join in a future Lick That Pokemon pack battle We can make that happen. But now it's time to dry off your Vanillux, pop it back in its Pokeball, and pretend none of that weirdness ever happened. That's it for Lick That Pokemon this week, but don't worry, it will be back soon enough for more saliva-based debauchery. I think we need a palate cleanser after that. Should we talk about some Dungeons and Dragons? Welcome to Bit by Bit, the part of the show where we break something down bit by bit. And this week, we're diving back into the Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook, looking at proficiency. If you're following along in the handbook, we're starting on page 13. Proficiencies are the things your character is trained in, stuff they are better at than a total beginner. First up, skills. These are like hobbies and talents. Maybe your character is sneaky and good at stealth, or really sharp-eyed and good at perception. If you're proficient in a skill, you get to add a bonus when you roll. It's the game's way of saying that your character has practiced this before. Then there are saving throws. Think of these as quick reactions when danger hits. A dragon breathes fire and you roll a saving throw to see if you dodge it. If you're proficient, you get the bonus because your character is trained to react that way. Next is equipment and weapons. Weapons and armor work best when you know how to use them. If you're proficient, you get that bonus. If not, you can try, but you're clumsy and don't fight as well. All of this ties into the proficiency bonus, which starts small and grows as you level up. Anytime you're trained in something, skills, saving throws, or equipment, your character sheet will say you're proficient and you add that bonus. In short, proficiencies mean your character isn't just guessing. They've learnt how to do it. Hopefully, now when you add your proficiency bonus, you'll understand why and feel a bit prouder of your character's achievements. Let me know in the comments which rule you would like me to cover in a future bit by bit. But that's it for the Player's Handbook this week. Let's put it away and grab something possibly even more nerdier. It's time to talk about comics. Welcome to Hit and Miss, the part of the show where I tell you about the best and the worst of my week. And this week, we're back with comics. I had a whole bunch, but something is always going to be at the top and something has to be at the bottom. In front of me, I have Power Rangers Prime issue 10 and VR Troopers issue 2. Both of these had featured on Hit and Miss before, but which way round is it going to go today? Drop your guesses in the comments while I give you my 60-second reviews before revealing the results. Right, first up, Power Rangers Prime. This has been a previous miss of the week. This series has been a little bit all over the shop for me. It started incredibly strong and then drifted into issues that felt rushed and stereotypical that didn't push the story forward. Today we get an origin story for Jun, our Eltarian Power Ranger. It's a very character-focused issue, and this is much better than pure action in my eyes. Deep down, we love seeing the Power Rangers morph and fight, but that's been done a lot, and these character moments help this slightly overdone franchise still feel fresh. There are some slightly shoehorned elements, like romances, which haven't really been hinted at before, and a few scenes felt a bit cringy despite trying to show the characters' struggles. The artwork is terrifying for a Power Rangers comic. Jun's father is possibly a future antagonist. He looks like the ultimate villain. Black spikes, scars, even vampire fangs. The colouring is darker and more oppressive than usual, which suits the story, but loses the bright pops of primary colours we expect. Story-wise, this issue achieves a lot. We get a clear sense of Jun through the rest of the Rangers are barely appearing. It's not action-packed, but we learn the history of one of our protagonists. So, that is Power Rangers Prime issue 10. I'm going to interrupt real quick because I need your help in the comments. The world of comics can be overwhelming for new readers, so drop the series that you would recommend for somebody just starting out. Your favourite series or one that's got a great jumping on point. Next week, I'll read some of the best suggestions and maybe even add them to my own pull list. Right, back to VR Troopers. Next, we have VR Troopers issue 2. VR Troopers was previously my hit of the week, and issue 1 massively surprised me, both visually and with the story. I really like the artwork in this series. Every panel is given room to breathe, and we don't just get page after page of endless details, which actually can be overwhelming. Like Power Rangers, the colouring is muted and dull in places. The original series relied on bold colours, and this comic has 80s and 90s synthwave inspired covers, but inside it feels like it's moving away from that and shifting towards a more modern, grittier style. The story is almost disconnected from Power Rangers Prime. I know these are the same versions of the VR Troopers from Prime, as there was a tiny crossover moment in issue 1. Right now, the story runs entirely parallel, which I'm fine with, but if they are teasing a joint universe, the stories will need to connect at some point. The comic feels aimed at a teen audience, with quick resolutions and intricate plans thought upon the spot and executed flawlessly. It could make a fun Netflix series similar to Lock and Key. We discover things alongside the VR Troopers, which is always a great mechanic. And as someone who's new to the franchise, learning their powers like Caitlin creating doubles of herself makes the story exciting. Fans of the show will also enjoy a new character reveal on the final page. Comparing the two, Power Rangers Prime 10 delivers dark, deep character development, while VR Troopers is fun but lighter. That depth makes Power Rangers Prime my hit of the week, and that lack of depth makes VR Troopers my miss. These have both been a hit and a miss now, so expect these series to fluctuate issue by issue. But enough of the 90s nostalgia, let's move into the noughties with some PS2 action. Welcome to the Spotlight, the part of the show where we shine a light on something that deserves it, or in today's case, doesn't. Today, we're back with the August 2002 edition of the PlayStation 2 magazine. More specifically, their review of Freakstyle, the EA Sports motocross game described as SSX of bikes. I remember the name of this game, but I don't recall ever playing it. The early 2000s were peak territory for extreme sports games. I did have an EA Sports motocross game on the original PlayStation, so I assume this was a sequel under a new name. The review gives it 6 out of 10, which isn't terrible, but it isn't great either. Yet, the review opens very negatively, making me want to keep reading. Lines like, "You can only hope real-life motocross riders get more career satisfaction than we did playing Freakstyle." That set the tone, and it describes the game as having a unique ability to inspire rage. The strongest feature, the review says, is the graphics, praising dust effects, smooth trick animations, and other visual details. The criticism comes from the lack of a learning curve. Repetitive long races and the need to complete each level multiple times. By the end, the review admits the game could have been great, but it's undone by its unfairness and poor progression. I remember the bright, fiery cover vividly, but this is one retro game that I won't be adding to my CEX list. Let me know in the comments if you remember playing Freakstyle and what your favourite extreme sports game was for the PS2 era. Tony Hawk's dominated, but there were hidden gems. And as we move from retro magazines to something brand new, it's time for What's in the Box. Welcome to What's in the Box, the part of the show where we unbox something, because weirdly, watching unboxings on the internet is incredibly satisfying. Today, I've got something new to me, and maybe new to you as well. It's the Cypher System Starter Set. I'm going to crack this open while explaining what Cypher is, in case it means nothing to you. Dungeons and Dragons is the most famous tabletop role-playing game, but not the only one. The rules that a tabletop game like D&D use are called a system, and there are many out there. Some are similar, like Pathfinder, and others try to be very different, like the new Adventures in Ankh-Morpork game based on the Terry Pratchett's Discworld novels. Cypher is another one of those systems that you can use to play role-playing adventures with your friends. If I'm honest, I don't know much about Cypher, which is why I bought the starter set. It comes with 10 pre-made character sheets to get you playing quickly, plus the rules to be able to make your own. You also get 2 adventures, one fantasy and one science fiction. There's also a 3rd adventure that's free to download. The adventures work with as few as 1 to 2 players, which is a nice touch. Playing a tabletop game with a small group on a whim sounds really appealing. The game also features XP cards and GM intrusion cards, whatever they are. And then you get a couple of dice, a D20 and a D6. The website says that this is the complete Cypher Systems rules, but considering that's £50 on its own, I doubt that. As a beginner, a starter set is actually better. A 300-page rulebook can be overwhelming if you've never played it before. I bought this for 2 reasons. One, the Magnus Archives RPG is coming out soon and it uses Cypher, so I wanted to learn the system. I'm also designing my own RPG game that's played through Discord channels, letting people play at their own pace throughout the day. I need rules that allow certain actions to happen, and Cypher might help. D&D or Discworld rules won't fit what I want to do. So that's what's in the Cypher starter set. D&D is great fun, but it has its flaws, and if you've tried it and it wasn't for you, don't give up on tabletop RPGs. Another system might be a perfect fit for you. Cypher is flexible, working for horror, cyberpunk, post-apocalyptic stories, and more, according to the website. Let me know in the comments what your favorite non-D&D system is. I want to break out of the D&D mindset and explore more. And with that, the end of the show is on the horizon. This has been your Saturday morning revival for another week. Forward this video to a mate who misses the joys of sitting in front of the telly with a bowl of cereal on a Saturday morning and wishes adult life could be a little bit more like that. After a hectic working week, 30 minutes on a Saturday morning in front of your screen is one of the most relaxing ways to start the weekend. There's a new episode every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. and highlights from that episode will be on TikTok and Instagram throughout the week. Make sure you're subscribed and follow to catch everything as soon as it lands. I'll be back next week with more Pokemon goodness, more comic battles, more retro oddities, and of course, more hobby hangouts. Give me a follow and help make the Saturday morning TV revival as big and as great as it can be. I've been Steve, and it's Saturday morning, baby.